Hi, everyone. You're listening to episode 65 of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. Thanks so much for inviting us to your table. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris.
And the deluxeifier.
Hello, you got Pete here.
All right, today we're feeling adventurous as we get wet and wild at the game table. We'll start underwater using our sonar to learn where the zones are, diving our subs and chasing those dubs in Endeavor, Deep Sea. Then we'll go back in time, braving the seas, praying for a breeze, and trying to keep our sweet fleet under our feet in Endeavor, Age of Sail. And finally, because we just can't help ourselves, we'll be making some major waves and pit these games against each other in our ultimate showdown, the Battle of the Funnest. But before we set sail, David, what's our topic of discussion for today?
Yeah, so this is a good one. I was on a forum and we were talking about unspoken rules in board gaming. And so we're going to see what your thoughts are on this one. So is memory a part of a game, or meaning that there's like note taking, or you can't take notes? You know, when you play the game, it all has to be kept in your mental head. You know, you can't actually write things down. You can't do any of that. It's just kind of like an unspoken rule, a part of a game. What do you think about that? What's your take on it? Is memory a part of a game, unspokenly?
So no note taking like during it. Like,
Yeah,
what
no
are my
note
next moves?
taking,
Okay.
or like, yeah, exactly. What are
Gotcha.
your next moves? Nothing. Everything that you have to do when you play a game, it should all just have to be what's in your head, and where you can keep that as an unspoken rule of gaming.
I have no problem with someone taking notes during a game, especially if someone else has analysis paralysis. And so part of the reason you can't remember what you're doing is because it's taken so long since your last turn. I personally don't have a problem with it. In fact, I've been on occasion here at this table asking you, hey, can you hand me one of those pads so I can write down what I want to do next time? So I'll be interested to hear what everybody else thinks of that.
I've never even thought about this being a problem, mainly because when there are games where you are trying to really stack like what your turn looks like, but you're waiting for a couple other people to go, it could totally wipe out what you want to do, even when you had a good idea of what you wanted to do. So, I mean, I don't know, it might be 50-50 on whether that even written out plan works or not. So I think there are some games that I think it's necessary to know, like, I have 5 things I got to link together to be able to do my move, because then you go back and then you got people doing mulligans, and that ticks me off more than people writing down what their turn is going to be. So,
Well, I'm going to take a little bit different take on this because I think it depends on the game. When we played Trio, I think it would be very
That would be bad. I agree. Where the game is memory.
Right, where the game is memory, and that's part of it. I just want to point that out because I think that's an important distinction in what we're talking about. Because you guys know me, you can tell me something that card's blue, and I'll put it down, and I'm going to guarantee you it's orange. But
Pete hides his own Easter eggs.
I do. Yeah. But there are occasions where I know Dave, our fifth meeple, a lot of times he'll put like a token on a deck of cards so he knows during his draw phase to do something. Some of these games that we play have a lot of mental overhead. And to your point, Daniela, where you're trying to link things together and get the correct order, I think anything that you can do to help streamline that or make it easier for yourself and speed up the game, I think it's a plus.
Yeah, and you make a great point there, Pete, that, hey, if it's a memory game, you can't be putting down, okay, yeah, there's a 3 over there. But when the game is trying to find that combination of things that works, and you found something in your head that you're thinking 3.3 moves later, and you kind of crack that code and you know what might work, the game to me isn't about, just now you got to remember that, right? And hope nobody talks to you while you're doing that. If it's not part of the game that you got to remember stuff, then write it down and have more fun.
Interesting, yeah.
However, when you ask David...
No, I was just, I think that as I was exploring this, discussion that was being had, I saw some people were like, yeah, that's, definitely something that's not allowed. We wouldn't allow that at our table because somebody could be doing, writing all their stuff and then they win because they can't actually remember it, but they could do all this. So I kind of get both sides of it. to me, I'm in agreement. I have pads here. You can write down anything you want and erase it. I think that's helps the game go along. I never thought of it as something that some people would consider maybe cheating. It was just interesting to be on the part of that discussion and maybe get thoughts of our audience that listens. If somebody had a notepad on every game they played, would you like that or not? I don't know. But I mean, here at our table, we always allow that. I think that it does help speed up the game. Anything that helps with AP paralysis, I'm a proponent of helping somebody out with that. I don't care. Other people might say, well, that's not how you play a board game. So it's just interesting. Just throw it out there.
I'd like to note Chris's one time just said, go where Daniela is. So he knew a move worked or something. He needed what I had.
What was yours? White Skulls, was it?
White Skulls.
White
yeah,
Skulls was
for
the
revive.
thing. Yeah, and just to add to that, I do know they have the World series of game boards.
Yeah, board gaming.
Yeah, and I'm sure in that they probably don't allow notes. That would be something that maybe you'd want to look into, because I can see where it could just really kill the game if I saw you draw that card and I write down the card that you have, because that might affect something later down the road. So.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of you don't go to the casino, but you can't go to the casino and write down stuff either. I mean, they don't allow any other table games to be done that, even though.
But Pete keeps giving really good examples. I don't think you should be writing down, okay, I got to remember he has that card. To me, for me, I'm writing down what my plan is and what I'm trying to do. And with the White Skulls, we were playing on BGA where it could be 3 hours between your turns or whatever. I'm trying to remember what is the path I'm following down in this game. I think if it's to remember what you were doing, great. Mm-hmm. If it's to keep track of what somebody else did, and again, the memory piece, then that's where I might say, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah, unless that game specifically calls for it, yeah. There's a lot of deduction games you can write down. I mean, part of the fun is trying to figure out what other people are guessing. I love deduction games, but I do agree. If you're writing down somebody else's turn moves, that's kind of weird.
Well, it's like when we were playing Sea Salt and Paper. Sometimes you bury that one card and you're trying to remember it, and it's
There's that
tricky.
one game we played that you have a small box of, David, that you have to write down what everybody else is doing.
Oh yeah, but that's part of the game.
Yeah, but that's a really good example of why you and to pay attention to what other people are doing.
I mean, do you think games should have this in the rule book though? If they don't want people doing this, or do you think it should just not be brought up at all?
I feel like for the first couple times you are playing something and you're trying to understand and you're trying to get the games down, because how many times have we gone back and referenced like the manual or how to play a game, and later on you look up something like, oh, we did that wrong, or something like that. So I think as you're learning a game, and then maybe down the road you say, all right, we've played this 3 times, like you don't need that anymore if it did state it in the rule book.
Anyways,
no answer. All right, thanks, cool. David. So there's our opinions on. Maybe you younger, fresh minds out there have a different opinion on memory and how to use it in a game. And if you're taking notes, let us know. So if you'd like to let us know what you think out there, just let us send us an email at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com, or follow us on our social media or in our BGG guild, or checking out our website at fifthmeeple.com. In addition to subscribing to our show, one of the best ways you can help us really grow our podcast is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen. And if you do, we just might read one of your reviews on a future episode. All right, guys, it looks like the tide's in, so let's push off into our discussion of Endeavor Deep Sea.
Endeavor Deep Sea is a nautically themed action point and retrieval game where you work to have the most beneficial effect on the world's oceans. The base game plays 1 to 4, while the deluxe edition plays 5. During setup, one of 10 scenarios is chosen, which provides the impact board, defines endgame scoring, and provides the initial modular board setup. This initial ocean board will consist of only a few tiles at or near the water's surface. You receive a player board with a series of attribute tracks, as well as a captain as your only starting crew member. Each round starts in the preparation phase, with each player gaining a new specialist crew member. A higher position on your reputation track allows you to recruit more powerful specialists. You then gain new action discs based on your inspiration track, while your coordination track determines how many action discs you can retrieve from previously used specialists, providing you with more actions while also freeing up the specialist to be used again. During the activation phase of each round, players take turns, typically placing an action disc on an available specialist and taking the associated actions. These actions, which require that you have a vessel on the associated tile, include travel, move one of your vessels to a new ocean zone and gain the arrival bonus. Sonar, claiming an available sonar space. This action most often adds new tiles to expand the ocean, providing a discovery bonus. Dive, draw a dive disc that provides a benefit that can be activated immediately or saved for later. Conserve, claim an available conservation site, pay the research cost, and reap the indicated reward, and journal. Claim a journal from a market of available cards for immediate and potentially ongoing benefits. Certain benefits and locations may also allow you to promote your specialists, giving more powerful actions, gaining benefits from linked spaces, or take other zone-specific actions. Certain events also allow you to gain impact, placing special tokens on the impact board, and again reaping an associated benefit. After all players have passed, a new round begins, and after 6 rounds, the game ends, and players score points for each of their attribute tracks, scoring hexes on the impact board, journals, Tier 5 senior specialists, scenario-specific mission goals, and leftover research and action discs. The player with the most points wins the game, leaving the other players to swim with the fishes. Endeavor Deep Sea was designed by Carl DeVisser and Jarrett Gray and was first published in 2024 by Burnt Island Games.
All right, guys, we've got 2 different variations here of Endeavor. Let's talk about this Deep Sea that Chris just explained to all of us. Let's go over some of the things in this game that are really just wonderful things and moments in the game that we really enjoyed, and just kind of talk about those first.
Well, I'll start talking just about the artwork on the cards and the kind of the production that I see going on. We played the deluxe version, so I can't necessarily speak to the basic retail version, but the version that we played, one of the things that I like about this is that every game setup, when you set it out on the table, there's 10 different kind of scenarios that you can go through. I haven't made it through all of them, but they kind of give you a different map to play, like a different kind of scenario, different cards that you can utilize, especially the mini map where you're competing, kind of like an area kind of control thing that you're doing. But when you're actually going through there, like the cards that you're flipping over, I love that they're thematic in the fact that as you get deeper, they get darker. There's a lot of cool things that they kind of do with the levels, and you can kind of see on the table as people are bringing out stuff, and just that exploration of, hey, I'm going to lay down something. I get to get 2 of whatever tiles that I'm doing. I get to choose which one I want. I think it's just a great feeling in this game as you help build the map, because you get rewards every time you put something out. In other games, a lot of times you're helping build the map, and that's not necessarily a new mechanic, but the fact that you're getting something off of those cards, I think, is something that I haven't really seen a lot of, and I like that reward system that you get stuff back the instant you just lay it down. So I think that was pretty cool on this game, just for the exploration.
Everything you just said is some of the main things that I loved, as well as every time we've played, the board is new. And sure, you may have seen a tile one place or another, but to your point, every time you are flipping a new tile to come out, it's worth it. It's worth it to expand the board, because you're getting something great for that. It just felt very clever, in my opinion, that this is the way that the board was kind of set up, and how every time you kind of play this game, it could be completely new. I think it's really, really great.
Yeah, a lot of replayability with even just the board. Then you factor in, well, what scenario might you be playing? How do those journal cards come out? Literally every game is gonna seem totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is true in both games when we talk about it, but I do like the action selection where you put a chip down on a worker to be able to activate them, and that activation may require you to have another chip to put out somewhere or do another action or function. I think that's really an interesting mechanic. I don't know that I've seen that in a lot of situations, but this one, it works really well, because not only do you have to have, you're not just going to do that action, you got to have the resources to do it as well. And it simplifies those resources by being just one disc, instead of having, well, I need 2 pieces of wood and a coal in order to do it. So I think it streamlines that, and you having that dual utility with those discs that you get. I think that's a really great mechanic on the way that it works.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. It's pretty cool.
And really, again, to touch on what you were just saying too, the theme for exploring, I like that the theme translates in this. You are diving down. You are doing lateral moves as the game goes on and you get deeper. The cards get blacker and blacker as it goes, to be those depths that you are in, and it's harder to get down there. It's just that whole theme, again, that really comes through, is just really, really well thought out.
And there was the one zone that came out that was the caves, and so you can only go into that zone. You go to the top cave from above it. You can go into the right cave from the right side or whatever. That was a really cool, along with the theme as well.
I was going to say, I also like the way that those tracks work, because as you increase on those tracks, you get better actions and better bonuses. As an example, when you increase your sub's abilities, not only can you move farther, but that gives you the ability to go down another level, which I think using that one option to not only determine how far you can move, but how deep you can go is an interesting mechanic. And that's just one of the rows. And I think it works the same with the other actions as well. You know, you have a more powerful, person, they can do more actions, or you get more pullbacks. I like the way that works.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think comboing moves in this was very satisfying. I know there was one point too that like I had a card and David was helping me go, well, you could go here and do that and also do this. And it was just very like helpful and satisfying to be able to know like the cards that are in front of you and what you use to kind of build your own little personal like tableau, but also deck. It was very helpful in moving the game along. I don't know, the whole thing just felt very fluid and satisfying is, I guess, the best word to use.
And I also feel like there's really good, what I'll call an escalation in this game where you play that first round and you feel like, okay, how am I ever going to do anything in this game? I took 2 turns and we're done. And then by that last round, you've got all kind of disc sitting in front of you, all kind of freedom, depending on what you built. And so you also spent that game building up the kind of game that you want. Everybody's going to have different actions that they can do depending on what you drafted. But when you get to round 6, it is completely different than round 1 and 2. And I think it escalates appropriately.
So I do like in this game, though, that it's very... I mean, you can play it as a cooperative. We don't. We play the competitive style. But even playing competitively, there's a lot of things you can do to interact with other players on the board. So meaning that, like, if I put a marker on something and then Danielle later puts her marker on something else, we both get a benefit a lot of times. And so it works to help you actually to try to work with other players or put yourself in a position where you're putting down a marker so that if you do research, that other people want to research next to you because you're all getting those bonuses. And I feel that that's also really satisfying because a lot of times in this game, yes, you're competing, but there are ways to cooperate and kind of help each other boost. And I think sometimes if you are telling yourself, well, I'm not going to cooperate with other players, I think sometimes you'll get left behind because some of those combo actions are really powerful. And if you're not going to play with everybody in that sense of the word or help other people out, I think you actually fall farther behind when I played this game.
Pete's going to disagree. So, guys, what about this game gives you the bends? Pete.
Well, what you're saying there is one of the things that I didn't like about it, because the crew that I took in, I was trying to leverage doing, I forget what's the turtle ones where you go out and do the...
Yeah, that was like an
conserve action.
Yeah, that conserve action, and nobody else was doing the conserve action. And I just was doing it all by myself, and I got no help. And I didn't really like that. Could I have shifted my position? Maybe, maybe not, because the crew that I picked kind of determined the path that I was going on. To your point, Chris, where you were saying, you're planning to get to the end. And I think you do need to be aware of what others are doing and try to have a flexible crew. Your captain does give you the option to do everything, but you also have to be able to pull that token back. So to your point, I agree with you. I think those that work together well will benefit from it. But if you're stuck out just doing your own thing, or your ship's way out and everybody's on the other side of the board, you can't get there, that can be difficult too. You can, I don't want to say paint yourself, but you can take on water and maybe not go exactly. I was looking for a good pun on that one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That was a good analogy.
But you start taking on water and nobody's there to help you bail out.
I just think it's because we know how you play, Pete. So we all give you your space. We don't want to get attacked.
I was hiding the turtles.
But I think, David, what you described, not only is there's a benefit there to be had, but it also leads you to want to do that and avoid the conflict of trying to take something. If you hook both sides, you're still only getting that bonus once. If you go someplace else and leave that for someone else, you're getting more benefit by allowing someone. So it's not just you're sharing the benefit. You're getting more benefit if you play it well. I also think maybe the conserve in the games that I've played, it seems like that's the thing that we have done the least. Maybe it's because you got to get to the point where you can do it. Whereas there's the other options, there's Lincoln left and right on a lot of those. Speaking of those spaces, though, I think it can be tough to see, at least for me, what the various spaces are for. especially on the tiles. Hey, there's different actions. They're all part of the same loop. No, that one's a conserve action, and that one's a sonar action, and being able to tell, I'm sitting there thinking I can do a research action, and nope, the other two next to it were research, but that one was a conserve, and so again, I've planned my turn, and because again, they all look kind of the same. They're just circles with you got to be able to see which symbol goes with what. That can kind of throw me off, and again, now all of a sudden I can't do what I wanted to do, and I'm not getting the benefit I thought I was going to get.
We talk about games sometimes where there is certain paths or things that you need to get to. For example, when we do Lost Ruins of Arniac, how important it is to go up Temple Track. I kind of feel that same way with getting your boat up to where you can go down to the deepest levels. Because I know in the second game we were playing, David, I was like one level down. I'm like, all right, I can just go down one more. I have all the stuff ready to go, but my boat, I couldn't go down. And my other boat was nowhere near an option for me to improve my boat. And I think that was a little frustrating. Yeah, maybe it's on me, on my planning, and maybe I should have done a little bit better. But I think that will come in time. But it can get a little frustrating because then I see David down there. He's just sucking up the points. And those points down at the bottom are very lucrative.
Yeah, David's down at level 5. Doesn't have to worry about anybody coming in because no one else is anywhere near level 5, and he's just sucking up the points. Yeah, I had a game where I didn't move much on that track as well, and it was just so limiting as you get later and need to be able to get where you need to get to take advantage of everything you've been building. And yeah, it's there and you can't get there.
Yeah, and it takes you an action to improve that boat.
Yeah.
So you feel even farther behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I will say that it is a little bit harder to pivot, I think, is what you guys are using. I mean, just because when you get your workers, you're only going to get 6 per the game, I think is what it is, and then plus your original workers. I think you only have 7 workers total in this game. And if you choose the first 3 and they're, and you realize later halfway through the game that, I probably should have chose differently, there's really no coming back for that. I mean, I think that there's a lot of different things you can do, but, the basic overall arching of the game, I feel like sometimes it's too fast because, if you make mistakes early, you will pay the price in this game later on. Not all games are like that, but this game in particular, because there are only 5 rounds, or is there 6 rounds? I can't remember.
This one, I think there's 5 rounds.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting confused.
Well, let's look that up.
6 rounds.
There's
Okay.
6 rounds. Yeah, 6 rounds.
Because there's only 6 rounds, and I feel like those rounds, you have to, if you don't build a good early engine, or you build the wrong one, and other people go different ways, it could be, that those last couple rounds could be you're just playing by yourself, or for 3rd or 4th.
And I feel like maybe you can make one mistake because everything gives you something.
Yeah,
but don't make another one.
yeah.
I think we were playing with our 5th Meeple Dave, and in the first game we played, he picked something that didn't work out for him in that first round or something, and he almost wrote the game off. And hey, there was a lot more that he could do, and he ended up doing later in the game. But I think he felt right away, okay, I'm way behind. I think he still had some room. You make that second one, and then you're tying your hands behind your back. Do you guys feel like I feel like hey, you get points for how far you go up, but there's 4 attribute tracks. You're going to get points at the end of the game for how far you get up. I feel like it was too easy to move up all of those. You're going to pick which one you go up and when you go up there. But by the end of the game, most of us were almost always at or near the top of that track. Some of us circling and recycling a couple of times. Did you guys feel that, or is that just me?
I think I probably liked it.
I mean, I did feel that. I think, though, it's always timing, though, when you get to that highest point. Because, I mean, you could get the recruit action late in that game, right? And you can get that 5 to get the 10 points. But you're not actually drawing ever a 5-star recruit. So I think sometimes it's not only when you get there. I mean, most people are going to get decently high just how the game operates. But
some stuff was harder. Like the DNA for me, and I think on both games, was very tricky and hard to get. Or maybe it was one game I was like hoarding up a bunch of it. And the other game I was like, I can't get DNA if I tried. I thought the one piece that was maybe a tad too loose was when we were putting all of our games on or all of our tokens on the one board where you could get stars and you can link them on. At one point, we're just piling like tokens on and we're just like racking up the points from that like alone. I was like, what is that point?
Yeah, the one scenario, there was literally piles of tokens of that.
Yeah.
that's just because we're experienced gamers here at this table.
I mean, overall, like the day that we played this, I had like a massive headache. And honestly, when I'm sitting back here thinking like, what didn't I like about this game? What didn't I work? I honestly can't say anything. Like, I just feel like this game really worked. I truly enjoyed it. I don't think I could ever teach it to somebody, but I am happy to play this game whenever it hits the table.
Yeah, I think I fell into the trap, and I use this a lot because I get the shiny objects get me. I fell into the trap that I was looking for more of an exploration part of the game versus doing that engine building. I think that's where it really hurt me, where I didn't have my boat good enough to go down deeper or move as much as I could. Or, like I said, I was going to go in and I'll do that research ability and nobody else followed me. I'm like, come over here, help out. And you guys are off doing your own thing. So, you can get yourself painted into a corner a little bit. And I think if you do that, it's going to be a long game for you and maybe not as enjoyable as it could be.
Yeah, I would say there's not that many guardrails. I mean, it allows you to kind of do what you want. And I think that, especially for the first or second time you play the game, especially for new players, they can get stuck in corners. And even as like a teacher, by the choices they made, you can't even sometimes get them unstuck. Kind of like Chris said, like they can make one mistake, but they make the second one. Yeah, you're just going to have to play that out and just, kind of take that game for what it is and hopefully not jam yourself into that corner again.
The other little note that I had, and I made a mental note when we played the games, that second game, I wish we would have played the same scenario again, just because the scenario shifted so much that I was just wrapping my head around what I wanted to do in that game, and I would have liked to have a second go at it. And we shifted to something else, and then all of a sudden, okay, everybody's working on getting stuff on the sideboards. I'm like,
literally the game.
Oh man,
Pete's over in a corner.
It feels like a different game. But to the plus side of it, with those different scenarios, it really does change the focus of the game as you're playing it.
David, I've only ever played this at 4 players or 5 players. Have you played at lower player counts, and how impactful is that as far as how much of the board you get to see, how much opportunity there is to team up with other people and things like that?
Yeah, so I played it at a 2-player count. I have not played it solo, but I played it at a 2-player count a couple different times. You don't get to see nearly as much of the ocean as you think. When we play 5, a lot of times we almost explore the whole map. It's a 5x5 grid, I think, is what most maps are, and we almost get every tile uncovered by the end of our games. When I played it at 2 players, I think one time we didn't even reach the 5th level or even the 4th level. Like, it was just a weird scenario, what we were kind of doing. There's less chaining because there's less people involved in the game. Yeah. So you really have to work on it, or you could choose not to. So I would say, like, to me, the player count for this game is probably going to be like 3 or 4. I don't mind it with 5, but I want to play, if I'm playing it with 5, I want to play with people who know how to play the game. I think probably 3 or 4 are the sweet spot in this game, but 2, it was fun, but it's just a different game than if you play with a higher player count. You're not going to see nearly as much, and you're working a little bit more by yourself.
When you don't have nearly as much, maybe I'm wondering too that as the board gets bigger, you need that motion. I need to be able to move 4 spaces now, and you might even need that less if you're just playing 2 players. The board shrinks. Well, the need to move shrinks a little bit too.
Yeah. And I think the scores are actually lower. They reflect that because it's just harder to do.
Yeah, I would think they would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes this discussion. David, why don't you take us to the collector's corner for Deep Sea?
Endeavor Deep Sea, at the time of this recording, it's won the Spiel des Jahres.
It won the Spiel des Jahres, yeah.
Okay. I can't remember if there's like a different award on that too. But yeah, it won the Spiel des Jahres. And so it's actually pretty hard to find right now. I was looking for it, and it's not on Amazon. I saw that the retail edition normally goes for $59.99, but I couldn't find any sites in the U.S. that were selling it. The only sites I could find currently was to import it from Europe over here. It was just really hard to find. I saw some used copies going around $50. The deluxeified version, which is the version that we have, comes with a 5th player. It was going for $85.99. I really can't find that. I see it going a lot higher than that on eBay currently, than that price. And, I see that if you go to BGG, you might get a deal from somebody, but it's just kind of hard to find ever since it won that award. I don't know. I'm sure they're going to be printing it out more, so you just have to wait. But I think that first initial printing or second printing, they're pretty sold out. And the weirdest part is we were at Origins and we saw this game a ton, like in spades. And I feel like after it won its award, it's been a lot harder to find across the board.
Yeah, technically it was the Kenner Spiel des Jahres.
Yeah, Kenner Spiel.
Yeah.
Yeah, is what it won. And ever since that, it's been a little bit crazy to find this game.
All right. Well, and thank you. Take us around to the final thoughts then. David, what do you got?
Yeah, my final thoughts on this game. I really enjoy this game. The first time me and Chris played this at Origins, I liked it then. As I've gotten more into it, it's just continued to grow on me. I want to go and play all the different scenarios. I want to see what the game really has to offer. There's a couple different expansions in the deluxeified version. They got like penguins and stuff. I kind of want to bring that out and see what the penguins do. But, to me, I just have a lot of fun playing this. I do like a lot of the mechanisms that they did. I feel like there's a lot of complication, but at the same time, a lot of things simplified. You're not doing crazy things with resource. You have that one resource, which we always call DNA. I don't think it's actually DNA, but it looks like a piece of DNA. But other than that, it's like action tokens as a resource, which I find unique. And I do like teaching this because the very first time you run through it, on the left side of the player board, I teach the players exactly how we were taught at Origins. And you're just running through kind of like your initial setup, and they kind of make you go through everything. And if it clicks for you, then it's like we're doing that 6 more times until the game ends. And I think it's always helpful to know that there's a set amount of rounds in this game, not necessarily turns, but rounds, is set. And so, but I really enjoy this game. Every time I play it, I feel like I enjoy it more. I'm going to kick it over to Pete.
Yeah, I'd like to play this at maybe some different player counts. I think we talked about 3. I think that might be the sweet spot. I do want to explore it a little bit more. I'm going to kind of hold my reservations on whether I really like it or just like it or kind of am in warm water on it, lukewarm on it. How about that? So a good game, I would play it again. I think going into it, I'd have to tackle it a different way, paying more attention to that scenario, because I think that's a big effect of the game, especially when it comes to scoring. Chris?
Yeah, I really like this game. As David mentioned, we played it at Origins. I liked it then. We got it to our table here, and whatever. I don't know if I'd say I loved it, but maybe I did. I mean, you put this on the table, I'm sitting down regardless of what's going on. Really good game. I think it's really clean, too. I think the design is really well done. They've iterated on different versions of this a couple of times now, and the game as it sits right now is really, really good. The last thing I'll say, David, you were talking about teaching people and how, hey, that first part walks you through how each round starts. And I would say if you're teaching this to someone, take your time on that portion. Make sure everybody understands this is what we're doing. This is why you're taking one back, and this is going to happen later on. And I think if you take just that little extra 30 to 60 seconds at that teach of this is how it goes every round, you're gonna benefit from that in the next round when people actually know what's going on and why they're doing things.
Are your socks still on?
No, I think my socks might be off on this. This is pretty good.
At least one toe out. All right. Overall, I think for this game, I said I had a headache. I'd love to replay this game. I enjoyed it even with like a splitting headache. In a lot of games that we play, there are many different tracks or many different ways to get points. I generally do not do something on a player on the table because I just can't wrap my head around a certain component. I can't just do everything. I'm trying to learn just the base or whatever we're going through. I felt in this game that I was able to go up on every track, go up on every little extra thing that I needed to. I just felt very included in that I was chaining things correctly, and I think it felt very satisfying to me. So again, I'm 2 thumbs up on this game. My socks are way off. All right, so those are our final thoughts on Deep Sea Endeavor. Let's transition. Guys, I think we got a leak here, so let's head to the surface for Endeavor Age of Sail.
Endeavor Age of Sail is a 2 to 5 player action point and area control game where growing naval powers attempt to connect with the distant regions of the world. The main player board consists of Europe plus 6 regions, each with a number of cities, joined by links and an open sea zone. During the game, players progress along 4 tech tracks, increasing their effectiveness in various aspects of the game. Each round starts in the construction phase, with each player gaining a new building. A higher position on your industry track allows you to construct more powerful buildings. You then gain new population discs based on your culture track, while the wealth track determines how many population discs you can retrieve from previously used buildings, providing you with more actions while also freeing up the building to be used again. During the action phase of each round, players take turns either activating a building using available population discs or spending an action token, both of which trigger specific actions. For the ship action in a closed region, this provides you a trade token for later use, and once all spaces in a region are occupied, the region becomes open. In an open region, a fleet space also earns you a trade token, and an open sea zone simply earns you presence in the region. The Occupy action allows you to place a disc in an unoccupied city of an open region where you already have presence, again taking the associated trade token. The attack action allows you to displace someone else's disc in a city, but at the cost of another disc. The payment action moves a disc from a building back to your harbor, and the draw action yields a card, providing benefits, as long as you have enough presence in the region to claim it. After all players have passed, players discard cards down to a level based on their influence track, and then a new round begins. After 7 rounds, the game ends, and players score glory for each of their attribute tracks, cities, links between cities and/or fleets, buildings, cards, empty governor slots, and extra population. Glory is then lost for any set-aside slavery cards, and the player with the most glory wins the game, sending the other players to Davy Jones's locker. Endeavor Age of Sail was designed by Carl DeVisser and Jarrett Gray, and was first published in 2018 by Burnt Island Games.
All right, guys, Age of Sail, another Endeavor game. So let's start talking. I guess the rest of us will start talking before Chris about some of the things that we enjoyed of this game, maybe some of the things for people who haven't played this game to look out for, or just helpful hints and things we liked about the game.
I'll start off. I think the game went a lot faster than I expected, especially in comparison to Deep Sea. The turns just seemed a little bit quicker. And the other thing that I liked about the game was we were playing each other more than I think we did in Deep Sea. Because if I'm going to place out tokens or place out chips, maybe going up that sail track, there's a little bit of mental battling going on do I try to move it up more? Do I get more chips there? Do I set somebody else up? Because there's also a battle of you're trying to go up, and as you place your chips down, you're getting resources. So there's that yin yang on do I get the resources that I need and maybe give somebody a benefit, or do I hold back and maybe take something else and hope that it works out to my favor? I like that experience better in this game than I did Deep Sea. But that's one of the things that really stood out to me, that I felt I was playing each of you guys more than I did in the other game.
This seems to me like a Pete game. And I think the things that you like, and you always talk about interaction. There's interaction out the wazoo here, and just what I know about you and the games you like to play, I would think that the more we play it, the more you're going to like it, kind of game.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for one of the things that I enjoyed in the game was just trying to get out there early. And I thought I did like the area control, like at the beginning of the game, like when you're putting out a lot of your your ship actions and you're placing your tokens. I'm kind of looking on the board in advance going, all right, I know that ship's going to potentially link to this area and this thing. So that was one of the things I ended up doing. I think in the second game was getting things in chips out there that I would say, oh, they're going to link together. But that's with the hopes of, I hope all my ships stay and don't get absolutely destroyed, right? So you're planning and mapping in advance and just praying and hoping that like you're not going to get your whole fleet blown up type of thing. So
I think the components are actually pretty good. They're nothing super fancy. It's not the super blinged out version, but I don't think you need it for what it is. In fact, I'm going to say I wouldn't want super blingy things. They're set up the way they should be. The buildings are well done. The trays are well done. Maybe they're a little bit too super giant for the trays. They take up so much room. But other than that, I thought the components were pretty good and made for me at least a fun and well executed game. But everything worked really well component wise.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think if you're looking for a game that has a little bit more player conflict, and kind of that spice that player conflict brings, I do think this is a great implementation of Endeavor Deep Sea. You know, for those of you who are listening, you know, I played Endeavor Deep Sea before I played Age of Sail. So I know some people might be like, they played Age of Sail, then they played Endeavor Deep Sea, and they think they fixed a lot of problems. For me, I didn't think I'd like this game coming in, just because I'm like, well, I played the newer, shinier version. You know, why would I want to go back? But I think there was enough things that I was reading about it to make me want to buy it and try to see, can the system work in a different way? You know, what were they doing? And I think when I dig into this game, I think they simplify. It's still a very simple game as far as like how everything kind of operates. You get used to that Endeavor, I call it system, but I think that there's more thought process than on how that area control takes place on the map. You know, you see all the resources kind of laid out in front of you, and you're looking around and being like, you know, if I do this and somebody else is going to get this. It's not like the other game where everybody gets it. You know, the two people who work together get it. It's only one of us is going to get it. And do I want to set somebody up, like Pete was saying? And, to the point where we actually, when we played this back to back, our game group, we actually switched chairs so that, maybe certain people wouldn't set up other people or they didn't like setting up other people. And so we thought that was enough of an aspect of the game about who was going in front of you that we would randomize who was sitting next to each other in this game in particular versus other games that we play, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
As our game group did that.
I think one of the helpful things is to know that in advance, sometimes you're setting up, again, as I was a little bit kind of alluding to before, is you're setting up your chits for even future down the road, like the last round or two of the game, and hoping things will link. But it is extremely helpful if you can get some of your chits or one or two in multiple different continents and in different areas. I know playing a little bit differently the second game, I was like, I have to link these different areas to give myself availability should I get locked out of another area that I'm thinking about. And so if you're listening and you are going to play this game or attempt to play it, like, just know that, like, you need the ability to be able to move it laterally forward, backwards, just in different areas to be able to eventually get points and link things down the road. Maybe you're not doing it right then, but as things are starting to wind up and everything, and you're getting rid of all your pieces, that's a very important link, I think, to have.
Yeah, I think what Danielle is talking about is that presence. I think as we played it more, it did become more apparent. I might not win a section, but I want to make sure I have a marker there so I can go in that section later. Because in this game, if you don't have something, you can't just go wherever you want in this game. You really have to establish yourself, or it's going to take you a turn, I feel like a wasted turn, just so that you can play with everybody else in those areas of the board. And, you don't really want to waste those turns, because turns in this game, just like the other game, they're valuable.
Well, the thing about wasting a turn is you're always getting a resource no matter what you do, which to me isn't wasting a turn. It's which resource do I want to get? And there's some of those blue chips, which basically I kind of noted myself here that it's like having an extra half action, which a lot of times I want to go after those because that gives me that ability where I don't need to use one of my chips to maybe activate one of my buildings to make that move. I can use that chip to do that. And those are, again, I like that back and forth. And do I set somebody else up? Do they have the ability to do the sale action to actually take advantage of it? Because I think you did that to me once. I was like, oh, I want to get it, but I didn't have the sale action to actually get that chip at the time. So I think there's a lot of dancing around on the board, manipulating where you're at and getting those resources. So that's what I really liked about the game.
I mean, Pete, I think I was talking about the part where if you don't get one of those outside resources and you want to come in there later, you just have to put your thing in the middle, and you don't
the
get
open
anything.
sea zone.
Yeah, you don't get anything for that.
Yeah, at that point, if you're trying to go that far, you're probably already lost. I'll just say that, because if you don't get in and work with 2 or maybe 3 players, you're going to get locked out. By that point in time, that whole area is locked up for you. Everybody else is going to be taking the other building actions there, and you're not. It's not really going to work for you. I think you cut your losses and be done. Target something else.
Yeah, and another thing I like about this game is I do feel like this game is more cutthroat, meaning that just on the nature of the game, it's not as forgiving. Maybe that's what I should say. It's not as forgiving, meaning that as you play this game, you're going to get cards and they're going to increase your stats along different tracks. But at the same time, if you throw out those cards or they get replaced or other things can happen in the game where you lose them, you actually have to go back down the tracks in this game. And it's not as forgiving, and you really have to map out what you're doing. There is a dark side you can go down here, which is like the slavery side, because back in this day, they did have slaves, and so it's just trying to be thematic. But if you go down this path, you might lose points at the end of the game if all the slaves are emancipated, which a lot of both our games, I think that happened. And so anybody that has slavery cards then loses points, and they also lose the benefits that were on those cards. Early in the game, I always like to dabble on the dark side. So I dabbled a little bit on the dark side in this game, and I do appreciate, just kind of like Lords of Waterdeep, I like kind of going to Skullport. I kind of like doing the bad things you shouldn't be doing, just because you get advantages early in the game that, to me, I think it sets you up for a longer game. But I know a lot of you guys didn't play that way, and it could be for various reasons, but I think me and Pete dabbled a little bit, and nobody else kind of wanted to go for that bait.
I think as we move into some of the cons, and I know Chris's palms are sweating over here because he's got a list, but to your point, to David, that was actually one of my cons. I thought the slavery mechanism wasn't all that bad with 5 players. Number one, because to your point, slavery was abolished every single time. So you could take those resources and whatever you needed to do, knowing that people are going to blow through those because they want to get, they wanted that other card that was right there.
Yeah, they
And-
want the points.
yeah, and so they wanted the points. So I don't know. Like, I guess I didn't, at 5 players again, I'm not sure that was all necessarily a bad mechanism in the game.
No, I didn't think it was a bad one. I just think that you took those cards probably knowing that you were going to lose points later in the game.
But I don't think you lose enough points for them.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of people,
Yeah.
yeah.
1 or 2 points.
It's
I
just
think.
1 point per card, and that's
Yeah.
only if slavery gets abolished. Which, granted, okay, it did in both of ours, but this game's taken some heat from the standpoint that slavery is even in there. Again, it's a thematic game. You could have rethemed it. I think the mechanism needs to be in there, and they do say that, hey, if you had a slave cards, you win with glory points. You are losing glory. So they're acknowledging this is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, though, I don't think it was punishing enough because they are really beneficial. And as you were doing that, David, you were getting out farther on the tracks by taking those.
Yeah.
That's worth a point later on. So to me, I think it solves maybe the benefit problem, but also the issue some people may have with it being in the game, that I think you should lose for those cards points regardless of whether slavery is abolished. You should be losing glory for using slaves. You are benefiting from it. And then maybe you lose more. Or if you're taking your 3rd slavery card, your 4th slavery card, you ought to be punished more than just a single point
Yeah,
again.
because to your point, nobody is going, oh, I'm going to go take all those cards so I make sure I abolish slavery. Because the person who abolishes slavery, you're not really getting anything.
Right. If you need the benefit from that, again, you're going to cost somebody 3
Yeah.
points. It's not
Yeah.
that big. And you're getting some points, but
Well, the other thing is you can't take too many of those because you only have so many slots.
Yeah.
And you can't discard those. The only way to get rid of them is if slavery does get abolished. And so you may be taking 1 or 2 cards. I don't think you would want to take more than that unless if you're really pushing to get that done as a strategy. I think the more players that you got, it does make a difference.
are we doing negatives?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The Chris portion of the show.
Chris, take it away. I'm sure we all got something, though.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the elephant in this room because we all experienced me playing this game. I have done a lot of self-reflection since we played this game.
Chris is mad I won.
No,
Just kidding.
Chris is mad at the fact that he can't handle take that in games.
Okay.
And thinking
Fair
back to
enough.
take that as part of this game. I do not like take that. I have said that forever. But I mean, gosh, somebody attacked me, and then I just stared at the board for 2 minutes, deciding, am I going to destroy my entire chance of winning just to attack them back? And I think the first game we played, I did. And I was just like, I just can't
Yeah,
take it.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was me, right? In the second game, I said, okay, knowing that that's part of the game, and I don't want to do that, I'm going to go on the less conflict likely areas, and I'm not going to go in the ones that get all the points early. I'm just going to go on these side streams over here, and then here comes Dave coming in and attacking me. Like, I'm trying to avoid it, and again, just fury. And part of me is, you know what, Chris, it's a game. Get over it. Accept the fact that it's there. But it is a mechanism I just don't like, and it is here. And what I really don't like about it, though, and when as I was analyzing myself, I was analyzing it too. I cannot protect against those attacks. There's
Right.
nothing I can do.
No.
I cannot build up a defense. I cannot make it hurt you more or anything. It's just, you want to attack me? Okay, get rid of 1 extra disc and it's gone. And I can't do anything to avoid it. And I can get my own cannon and I come attack you back and I'm right back where I started. And so I think I'd be a little more okay with the take that version if I could do something about it, make it hurt you more, make it harder for you to do it. But I can't. It's just whenever you want to attack me, come in and wipe me out and ruin what I was working on.
Yeah,
David loves it. Okay, I don't.
Well, I want to add to that because my dislike on it is the attacks are driven mostly because somebody needs a resource. And that's really what it comes down to. You have a building on one spot and they have a building on another spot, and there's a resource right in between. Whoever gets that gets them both. And that's what I had to do because I needed that middle resource. So I had to attack you to get that middle resource.
I understand it.
I know. I'm just saying.
Still don't like it.
I agree with you. And I wish the attacks could target the person that's probably ahead versus just somebody who's cannon fodder. Because in the last game that we played, I had a decent present out on the board, and I just got waylaid because everybody else had cannons, and I
There was
lost.
one game where you almost had no presence
But
on the board. 'cause-
I had
Yeah.
two, and I get that's part of the game. And I understand the only reason why I was attacked was because there were resources available. And maybe I should have been doing attacking ahead of time. And that's what I did with you. The turn was coming around. We're both pointing guns at each other. If I didn't do it, I would have expected you to do it. So therefore, I had to do it first. And I think that's the thing I don't like about it.
And the rest of my game was just get the cannon attack action so I can attack it.
Well, and I think what you guys are getting to is, so one of the things I was saying as a con in this is with game 2 that we played extremely fast. I think some of the placements were not probably thought out as well, like with ships of like, where am I going when I'm just like landing them on places to get, action tiles. Like, I don't think you can do that in this game, but at like the halfway point, then everything just started blowing up. So it was a weird, bizarre game, the second game that we played, where it was just like we were playing so fast and then everything was getting blown up and it just felt like very chaotic. And I think that was kind of bizarre from the first game that we played. The first game was very like, okay, we're going through the motions and like we were playing like fairly at a good pace. But I just thought that second game was like just chaos. It felt different to me.
Yeah, we played at a higher player count too, so I wonder how this would play with less players. I know there's a different side of the board, correct?
Correct.
So there's less spaces out. So I'm not sure where the best player count is for this game, but I know playing with 5, that board got really crowded pretty quick, and again, it forced that conflict. And again, I'm okay with conflict if it's targeted at the leader. When it's just incidental and I have to attack you because I need that resource.
Yeah, but if it's thematic, if the ship's closest to you, you're gonna.
Well, yeah, I get it. I'm like Chris. I don't have to like it. It's in the game, but just pointing.
I
that
would like
out.
to play the game again with my newly revised attitude after all the lectures I've given myself to say, okay, Chris, you're going to go in this and just accept it.
We all have a game like that though, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I do think, to Daniela's point, I do think that it was just, I know Dave did a lot of attacking. I think I barely did any attacking. I kind of just was playing this meta political game, kind of like you do in Catan, where you're just kind of talking to people and kind of like, oh yeah, look at that person, look at that person. I mean, I think there's game, yes, you're playing it on the board, but you're also kind of playing it above the table too. And I think there is that aspect in Take That games where, yes, there's actions you could do on the board, but there's other stuff that's going on the on the top side for most Take That games. There's other reasons why people attack people. I know sometimes we try to play it fair, like, oh, we're attacking for resources. We're not that mean game group that other people kind of have, and they like that. But I just think that we kind of learned the game a little bit better, Danielle, that second time. So I think some of us were doing things potentially in that game that made it act vastly different than the first one, because everybody wasn't just being peaceful to each other, and we were like, hey, we're going to play for points, and that's what we're going to do. Looking at player count, Pete, I'm just looking on BGG, and it looks like most people recommend this game at either 4 or 5.
Really?
So it seems like they want to play it at a higher player count. I don't know. There's a lot of expansions that we have in the box too. I don't know. Maybe some of that mitigates some things. I know there's kind of things where you can flip up on the board and you get other maps that go along with different sections, kind of like in we talked about like in SETI. So like if the aliens come out, I think there's stuff in here that they come out and they can get you different points, and there's different zones in here that come out new every game that you could discover, and there's a lot of them. There's I feel like there's 20 tiles like that in this game in one of the expansions. So I get that point though. I mean, you guys were blowing each other up, and I think at that point, like most people, you just want to be Switzerland and just watch people go at it. And I see Chris, I'm like, yeah, Chris, get those cannons, knowing that it wasn't going to lead to the road that he needed.
I tried to be peaceful in that second game, and it didn't work out either.
Yeah, Dave just wanted to attack you too bad.
Yeah, but moving on, I also think that the shipping tracks, we've talked about them a little bit. I feel like there's an inherent flaw in the shipping tracks where if someone gets too heavy in one of them, then okay. Unless I really need that resource, and that's the only place I can get it, I'm going to go somewhere else to get it because I'm just helping you get to that governor card. And so you can end up seeing a stall. And David, you were pointing out that, hey, that mechanism looks very similar to SETI. And we saw the same thing in our plays of SETI, that if someone gets too far ahead when they're scanning, then okay, I'm not going there. Then I'm just helping so-and-so get some points. And so those things all just stall.
Yeah, that happened to me in both those games that you're talking about, because I did go up the track and all right, I got 3 things out there. Nobody's going to want to go. And same thing in SETI, where I went out and I'm like, all right, well, I'll just keep spamming this one. And all right,
Now you're stuck on your own. You just have to do it all
you're on
yourself.
your own. Yep.
Yeah.
That is.
That's the theme of a lot of my plays. I need other friends at the table.
No, I agree with you, Chris, on that. Yeah, that's a good example.
The other thing that I have about it's not a dislike. I think it's just important to know that to get victory, you have to go up all of the tracks. If you don't go up one of the tracks, you're pretty heavily penalized for not getting up that track. It forces you to do all the different actions because you have to get your shipping portion up. You have to get your cards that you can hold, the number of cards that you can hold, the number of tokens that you can pull back. So you're trying to balance that out, and maybe that's a good thing in the game where you can't just go all in on one thing. You do have to kind of balance it out, and as you're going for those resources and trying to get those other cards that you can score based upon how, once that area opens up and you start taking those cards, or the area doesn't need to open up. As long as you have a presence in there, you can start taking the cards as long as you have the presence that equal that card.
Yes.
You still have to have the action to take that card, but that also gives you points. So it's an interesting balance. I do like the way that mechanism works.
I mean, I agree with you, Pete. I mean, my last negative about this game is that I'm not sure that all the buildings that you get from round to round are actually balanced as much as they are in Endeavor Deep Sea, because I think there's some buildings that you want to get your hands on because there's bigger advantages, I feel like, especially like on that third and fourth rung than there were in the other game that we had played that they'd done later. And if you're just in a bad turn order, meaning that you're picking fourth, and even if you're all at the same recruitment level, sometimes those three buildings, you exactly know which ones people are going for, and those ones are gone off the game because they allow you to do two actions, and everybody's doing that. And in this game, those cards are pretty powerful, and I don't know if it's exactly balanced. I haven't played it enough to know that, but for the few games that we played, it didn't seem as balanced as maybe it should. And I felt like when I got one of those cards, or sometimes I got two of them, and I could do two actions on one card, and I saw at the other table, some people just didn't have it. I felt like I was way ahead on what I was trying to do.
I had the same note down.
Yeah.
I have a feeling like some of those are a little off balanced because versus Deep Sea, you could generally get something at some point. With some of these tiles, it was like, oh, there's two there and they're gone.
Yeah.
And then by the time, even if you got that card in the same round because you had 3 markers and you could go up to the third spot, it could be gone by the time that tray comes around to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have yet to get one of the 2 action buildings.
yeah.
They're always going, okay, I'm there, and there's nothing there. So take another cannon, take another attack.
Well, that might be the way that the game balances itself out.
Maybe
too.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So the last thing I had was I have plenty, but I don't need to talk about them all. But I really struggle to have a feel for who's winning the game in the middle. I don't think I need to know exactly what's going on, but I look at that board, and with all the different connection bonuses, I have a really hard time figuring out, who even might be in the lead. And so, okay, attacked leader, how do I even know who the leader is? I don't know. I've really struggled.
Okay.
And we talked about it too. I think who you sit next to can have a big impact on your game. So, and that's one of the reasons why we did switch seats in between. I think that is important to keep in mind that, there's a lot of games where that doesn't matter too much. But I think in this one, it really does, because if you have somebody feeding you and setting you up, or vice versa, you're setting somebody else up all the time, it can really affect the whole game, not just your game.
All right. David, why don't you take us over to the Collector's Corner on Age of Sail?
Yeah, so Age of Sail, you cannot find this on Amazon. It's not one of those games. Looking at the market right now, it's going used on BGG anywhere between $60 and $90, but I was just trying to look up prices on eBay, and it seems like it's going for more than that on eBay right now. I don't really see a copy of this game for anywhere under $100, and I feel like maybe that's because Endeavor Deep Sea did so well, and now people are like, hey, I want to see how this other game plays. But it seems like the price market for this game, just looking at trends, it's going up in value. So if you do want this game, maybe it's a good chance to take a look at it, try to get a used deal around that $60 mark, because it seems like prices have been steadily rising on this game. And who knows, maybe they'll do a reprint, but I don't know. It doesn't look like there's a lot of copies just necessarily in the wild. They're mostly used copies.
Okay. All right. Well, I think there's a lot discovery here, so let's go around for our final thoughts. David, final thoughts on Age of Sail.
My final thoughts on Age of Sail, I came into it thinking that, unfortunately, I probably wouldn't like it as much as the other game. I'm not going to say, but if that's the case yet, but I will say that it has exceeded my expectations and how I felt about it after I played it. I think that I did like the player in action just a little bit more. I think there was a little bit more tense moments in that aspect of the game, but I think it's a good game if you're okay with Take That. I don't think it's a crazy like Take That game, like maybe like some other games are, like Blood Rage and stuff, but I think that it is on that scale as far as like it has that element in there. You just have to know it. So if you don't like that element at all, this probably isn't for you. Going over to Pete.
Yeah, as Chris mentioned, this is my type of game. I like the interaction on the board. I like seeing what's available. Is my move going to affect somebody else? Is somebody else's move going to affect what I do? I really like that in the game. So for me, that's a plus on the game. Chris?
Yeah, for me, I actually mentioned to the group that I'd actually maybe like to try this again. I don't think I like to play it a super number of times because I just don't think it's up my alley. Too much conflict, too much Take That. And again, with no way to mitigate it. You can retaliate. That's not the same as being able to mitigate it. Mm-hmm. And that's where it falls apart for me. I'd like to play it just to see, hey, can I change my attitude a little bit? I would not buy this game. I'm probably not asking for it beyond that one extra play just to see if it's any different.
Thanks. As far as for me, I would say I'd like to see if there are expansions for this, correct?
Yeah, and in fact, I was trying to look at one of them, and there is a fortify action on one of the expansions. They say they changed up all the buildings. Okay. So maybe.
Well, I guess in a game like this, Age of Sail, I think there's something still to be explored. I'm not sure how much there is still left to be explored. When it came out to the table and it was set up, I'm kind of like, oh man, this is drab. It's like old world looking map, and it's kind of like brown and murky. And I mean, the chits that you have are pretty good colors for them. I guess I'd like to see a little bit more like, I don't know, like pirate action or like, yeah, being able to recruit some type of like help for mitigating, get a fleet to help defend your ships out there or something like that. But it's all right. It's okay. I don't know if it's my favorite. Happy I walked away with a win, but I forgot about it 5 minutes later. So yeah. Well, I feel like the winds are shifting here, so let's sail on over to today's Battle of the Funnest.
All right, everyone, it's time to separate the men from the boys and the games from the toys, pitting these games head-to-head against each other in the ultimate face-off. In one corner, weighing in at 2.9 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.2, rising to the surface in 2024, making waves in our faves and underwater caves, the principal of the periscope, the saline sultan, no one is hotter underwater, Endeavor Deep Sea. In the other corner, weighing in at 2.84 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 7.9, launched in the late 16th century, spreading culture and industry like a nautical symphony, the master of mastheads, the poop deck prodigy, the spry tease of the high seas, Endeavor Age of Sail. And now, let's get the ocean in motion in today's Battle of the Funnest Showdown. All right, guys, we're evaluating these games head-to-head, 5 different categories: theme and production, mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and the fun factor. The game that gets the most votes wins each category, and the game that wins the most categories takes the prize in our Battle of the Funnest. So, all right, Captains, let's make some waves, starting with theme and production. Pete.
This one's real easy. The theme and production, I'm going to go with Deep Sea. You feel like you're exploring. You have the restrictions on getting your ship better to go down deeper. I just like it better. The production value, they're kind of on par, but I think the production in Deep Sea, I think they upped it just a little bit. So that's my vote. We'll go to Daniela.
Yeah, I think this one by a landslide, theme and production, Deep Sea, for just the color, the thoughtfulness, the way that the board is done, the just overall layout, the colors. It's really eye-catching. All the pieces, parts for it being, it was the deluxeified version, but it was nice. So looking at David.
Yeah, we actually, Danielle just said, no, we actually played the Deluxe 5 version of both copies. So,
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as the theme and production go, to me on this one, I think the production values are decently similar. I do feel that they took what they learned from Endeavor Age of Sail, and they did away with some of the rough edges and made the production even better for Deep Sea. And so, besides that, I just like the theme of Deep Sea way better. It's just more up my alley. And so, for those reasons, I'm going to go with Endeavor Deep Sea on production and theme. Going over to Chris.
Yeah, I actually think both of these games do pretty well on both theme and production. I think it can be hard to tell in today's deluxification version, okay, what's the base components, what's the whatever. But theme-wise, I think they both, hey, if I'm playing Deep Sea, I feel like I'm out there exploring. If I'm playing Age of Sail, I feel like, again, I've got to extend out. And they do, I think both of them really, really a good job with that. So it's only by a whisker, but I'm still going with Endeavor Deep Sea, which means Deep Sea sweeps the category. Theme and production takes an early lead. We'll go to mechanisms. Back to David.
Ooh, mechanisms. This one's a little bit harder for me. I'm trying to think through it. I like the Endeavor system, so I'll say that first and foremost. Like, I like the way that they do their action system, and so both these games have that same exact system. But for me, when I think about the other mechanics, I just feel like the smoother mechanics of Deep Sea win out for me. I like the team aspect more. I like that there's not as much conflict, even though I do like conflict. On this one, I just like the smoothness of it. And for whatever reason, Endeavor Age of Sail, it's just a little rougher around all the mechanics. They work, but they're a little bit more jagged, I would like to say. Like, they're not as simple to teach. You know, there's more going on there. And I don't know if it's necessarily worth a squeeze when I have to teach somebody, all the different things. Your things can go backwards and forwards and all this other stuff. As far as the different tracks, I kind of like the other one where it's just really smooth. And I feel like they've made those improvements and I like them. I'm going to go over to Daniela.
Yeah, for the mechanisms, I think there's a little bit more straightforwardness with Age of Sail, only because of a little bit less areas to move to. There's less to do versus Deep Sea. But for me, I felt the fluidity was more in Deep Sea. And so I'm going to go with Deep Sea. But that's really why I'm kind of leaning between those two. I don't think they're either one worse than the other. But again, the fluidity, kind of as David was just talking about, seems for me personally to be there for Deep Sea. Pete.
I'm going to disagree with both of you guys. I think for the exact reason that you said you think the Deep Sea is smoother, I think it's a little bit more complex and a little bit more complicated. If I think about it, in Age of Sail, you have about 3 different types of action you can do. You can do a sail, you can do take over an area, or you get one of your cards. That makes it more fluid for me because of the decisions that I have to make are those 3 things rather than I feel like there's 5 different things, and getting locked out of a particular action completely because of poor planning. I think it's a little bit more forgiving. And again, I do like complicated games, but I think mechanically it's a little bit more streamlined, and I like that it's not too much going on. I talked about that in some of the other podcasts where I get the theme, but for me, the mechanics, I think I'm just going to go with the little bit simpler mechanics, more streamlined, little less options. Chris?
I don't know what your vote was.
My vote is for Age of Sail.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I am wavering here because I'm again, it's the new me and saying, man, maybe I should play the Age of Sail again. I think it's an unfair fight because Deep Sea is like a re-implementation of Age of Sail, and so they're automatically taking what was there before and refining it. And from that standpoint, I think they did a really good job. They replaced the track extenders with the loop back with the benefit. There's no direct take that, but there's a mutual beneficial type thing that actually can. Those are things that speak well to me. What I'm sitting here wavering on is I'm thinking the fact that, hey, you're getting cards in Age of Sail, and if you have to discard those cards for whatever reason, you're actually moving backwards on the tracks. And I'm trying to think, what other games are there where you're moving backwards on a track? A tech tree where you're moving up, do you move back? I'm sure there are others on there. None are hitting my mind, but I'm sure they're out there. I'm actually going to give this to Age of Sail. I'm not even sure why, other than I feel like almost maybe Deep Sea is too smooth. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm having a hard time justifying, but as I'm sitting here and saying, well, that balancing of the cards and the fact that you can move backwards, there are other things to consider, and I can appreciate that level of complexity and the puzzle in there. So I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do Age of Sail. My one vote for Age of Sail to foreshadow some things here, most likely. But that gives us a 2-2 tie, and so we go to our fifth meeple, Dave, to break the tie on mechanisms.
All right. So Dave says, I select Deep Sea since the specialist flipped over, giving you an improved action, and also since we're building the main board during each game.
All right, so all that struggle I had to explain my Age of Sail, it didn't matter. Deep Sea still wins mechanisms. Takes an early 2-0 lead. We go to value for your time. I'm going to start on this one. Age of Sail has actually been the quicker game for our group, almost a full half hour quicker on our games. Both of them had some downtime, especially if you've got AP players in your group, but not as bad as some other games. I didn't feel like I was waiting forever. I don't like the scoring in either of these games. So it's not necessarily the mechanism of scoring, but rather the amount of time it takes to do it. The game is over. Now we got to figure out the scoring, and it takes a while. But when I'm done playing these games, if I look back and I ask myself, was that worth the time? To me, it's a clear winner so far. It's Endeavor Deep Sea. That's what I'm going with. I will go to Daniela.
So I'm going to say Age of Sail for value for your time because it was like an hour. It was very quick in and out. Deep Sea takes a little bit of time. You got to pull a lot of stuff out. You got to, really get invested into it, which I don't mind. I love Deep Sea. But I think just for what it is for value for time, kind of if you want to get in and play a game that is with the same kind of mechanics and mechanisms, I think Age of Sail has that vote for me. David.
Yeah, so I normally set up the games, and I do that to save us time because we're trying to get so many games played once a week. I will say, as far as setup goes, Endeavor Age of Sail has a lot longer setup than Deep Sea, just because you have to put out, I think it's like 95 chits on the board, and you have to fill out every space, so you have to draw them out of the bag. And when you take Deep Sea out of the box, you're pretty much just go because you're building the map as you go. Where this one, you have to place every single one by hand. And for whatever reason, they don't give you any extra chits, so you better not lose any of them because you'll be SOL, I guess. But all that being said, we did play Age of Sail a little bit faster. Deep Sea is a little bit longer. I like both of the experiences for my time. I would play both of them happily. But right now, I'm just more invested in Deep Sea just because I feel like the time... I don't feel the extra time. And maybe that's because, and I do say the scoring on both of these at the end of the game sucks. So I agree with Chris. It's just convoluted on both of them. But all that being said, I'm going to take Endeavor Deep Sea. Kicking it over to Pete.
Value for my time. This one was a little bit tough for me too. I'm not sure that I'm going to say I love either one of these. I do agree with everybody here. I think Age of Sail felt like it played faster. Deep Sea's more immersive, but I didn't enjoy Deep Sea as much as I thought I did. And to your point, Age of Sail is just my kind of game with the interaction. So the value that I got from the interaction with the people on the board, with the players, that's really what gave me the extra value. I didn't feel like, again, maybe it's just because of one or two plays that I did. I felt like I was just kind of doing my own little thing and nobody was helping me, and hit the sad button there for me. Yeah, hit the button. Go ahead. Yeah. But for me, I just enjoyed Age of Sail a little bit more. I felt like I got a little bit more value out of it, even with some of the complaints I got about it.
So that puts us again at a tie, 2-2 for value for your time. We go back to our tiebreaker, fifth meeple, Dave.
All right. Dave, once again, has betrayed me. He says, I select Deep Sea since the tiles had more actions to perform during your turn. This gives me a sense that I could get a better engine going.
All right, so Deep Sea wins again. Value for your time. Commanding lead, 3-0. We go to replayability. I'll start with Daniela.
Replayability, easy. Endeavor Deep Sea. I want to get those penguins out too, David, and see what that's all about. Simply for this fact that the board is ever changing. Again, I love that part of the game. And so I think that in future games, it'll always look different and always kind of have a new theme. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of replayability in Deep Sea with the modular boards, scenarios, etc. in Age of Sail, the trade tokens, they're going to be different every game, but the asset and the governor cards are always the same. We didn't get a chance to try the exploits in Age of Sail. I think that's part of the base game. So that, I think, adds a difference to each game, but I also think that adds complexity with it of understanding, okay, what does each one mean? And so while we didn't get to check it out, I think that would have been more trouble than it's worth. For me, it's Endeavor Deep Sea, hands down. I'll go to Pete.
Yeah, Deep Sea, I agree with you guys. Nothing really more to say. There's just the modular boards, the different scenarios, Deep Sea. David?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to vote that way. I do want to see what those exploits do, because I do feel like if there's something like SETI where they have 20 different boards and they come out and they actually change up how the game is played on the actual board, there might be a lot of replayability there. Maybe we'll have to play that, Chris, the next time we go for it. But for right now, it's Deep Sea.
All right, so Deep Sea sweeps replayability. We go to the fun factor. I'm going to go first. I do not like to take that factor in Age of Sail. It sucked every ounce of fun out of the game for me. Again, I want to go back and see if I can get over that. I have a bet that maybe I can't, but by a long shot, Endeavor Deep Sea for me for the fun factor. I'll go to Pete.
Well, my type of game is, we mentioned before, I like the interaction. I just get that more with Age of Sail, so I'm going to go with that way. I do like the deep sea exploration of it. I just wish there was a little bit more interaction, and maybe if you guys play nicer with me next time, I'll get a better experience, and I'll come back to the table for that
Pete
one.
and his turtles.
All right, David.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like moments go in these games, I did have a lot of fun moments in Age of Sail. It almost makes me want to go that way, because I do love seeing Chris get really mad at somebody and just try to throw his whole game off and build cannons just to get that one fort back. That's always a great time for me. Just those little stories within the story, and sometimes it's in the pain of other people. I think that's a common theme, that I like to see other people in pain. But as far as
That's crazy.
Normally I would pick that, but just how much I like Deep Sea, just everything about it, the feeling I get when I play it, wanting to get back to the table, wanting to explore more of it, wanting to see, what else is gonna come out. I just want to see more. And so for that reason, I can't believe I'm gonna say that, because I thought originally I was gonna go Age of Sail, but I'm gonna go with Deep Sea on this one. Even though Chris getting attacked by Dave all game was pretty great and epic for me, I'm going to still go with Deep Sea. Moving over to Daniela.
Yeah, we're sweeping this one. This is, or actually, no, we're not.
No.
Pete, all right, we're not sweeping it, but we're going to deep dive on it. Deep Sea for this. For me, these moments of fun came more through the exploration of everything that we were doing. I just felt more engaged in Deep Sea.
All right, so Deep Sea wins the fun factor. Age of Sail was taking on water pretty much from the start. I think they're sunk. So that'll do it with a score of 5-0. Endeavor Deep Sea dives deep and wins today's Battle of the Funnest.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of yet another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and if you'd like to get in touch, just email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media, or don't, because you guys never do anyways. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, individually we are one drop, together we are an ocean. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios, amigos.
I'm dying.
You just chewed that Starburst.
Yeah.
I'm just
I just made myself blush. No, okay.
You actually are blushing.
Yeah.
If you leave your PayPal, Chris will pay you $1.
Gotta go. Okay. Tell me when you're ready. All right, you're not going? Okay. Guys, I think we are got.
I'm going to set somebody up here. That was a long one.
Yeah.
That was a long one.
That's what she said.
Thank you.